God. I just lost my mirror. This is not an easy thing to do. Big shouts to the beauty gurus. Hi, my name is Adriana, and today I'm coming to you barefaced to do the makeup and books tag. So I pretty typically do my makeup for my videos unless I am doing a vlog, and I did this makeup and books tag over a year ago, but it's such a fun tag and a lot of my answers have changed as I've read more and gotten back into reading more full force, so I want to do it again. So I'm going to. Before I jump into it, please consider liking and commenting on this video and subscribing to my channel if you like bookish things. I've already done kind of the skincare on my face. Other than that, I'm completely bare. The first prompt I will be starting with is primer. I don't always do primer for my videos, but sometimes I do. Anyways, the question for this prompt is a book with a lasting impact. Like I said, I have done this tag before, so I did go through and like watch my last one just to make sure I wasn't gonna come up with the exact same answers. My initial thought for this one was the same initial thought I had for that one, which kind of makes me think this is a good answer to the question if after having read this 2 years ago, 3 years ago, it is still my answer for a lasting impact. And that is Lovely War by Julie Berry. Part of me wonders if the reason this has had such an impact on me is because it's basically the last book I remember reading before like 2020 hit in full force. So like the story I always tell about me reading this book is that I was reading it on a plane, started crying during one of the scenes and was freaking out like the person sitting next to me on the plane. It's just so weird to think. I was on a plane for like a work trip and that was like the last trip I took before I came back to work, and they're like, yeah, you're gonna work from home for like 2 weeks, maybe longer.
In like a year and a half or longer to see how we unravel this mess.
And it was definitely longer. I was working from home for like 4 months and the world shut down and it was crazy. So I wonder if I kind of conflate this book with the last time I was living my life normally and the world wasn't a crazy disaster. I don't know. Maybe the lasting impact of this book is not necessarily the book itself, even though I think the book is incredible and I had a great time reading it and I definitely want to reread it at some point. But maybe it's just lasting impact of the time in which I read it. So with the primer out of the way, the next step is foundation. So the prompt for this one is favorite first book in a series, and for that, I'm going with Six of Crows by Leigh Bardugo. I think this book just does such an incredible job of like setting up an expanded part of the world Leigh Bardugo created in Shadow and Bone. It holds its own like in such a big series, and typically I don't think you see spin-offs do as well as the Six of Crows duology has done in an established universe. So I don't know, I think Six of Crows is really good. It's super, super fun. It's a fantasy heist story with a big cast and it's a good time. All right, and the next prompt is concealer, and that is a character you would like to erase. What I came up with was from the book Heart Principle. It is the third book in the Kiss Quotient trilogy kind of shared universe thing. The Heart Principle focuses on a young woman. Okay, so she is dating this guy. He's super shitty. He says, I want to marry you, but before we get married, I want to have an open relationship so I can see if I really love you. I don't know. It's stupid. He's not even the character I want to erase. So like this is how serious this is. But anyways, so they semi-break up, are semi in this open relationship thing, and she decides to go to therapy and she ends up being diagnosed on the autism spectrum. She goes to tell her sister, and her sister is just like, you're not on the spectrum, blah blah blah, you need to just stop being lazy, whatever else, blah blah blah. And so the sister is the character I would like to erase. I think she is terrible, and I really struggle personally as a reader, like reading about sibling relationships that aren't positive, just because I've spent a lot of time and energy in my life making sure that my sister and I have a good positive, healthy relationship. And it's something that I think, especially as an older sibling, like you need to be really cognizant of and really put a lot of your time and energy into, because I think it is important. And especially this woman was already going through a terrible time with her boyfriend being a piece of shit, and then her sister is a piece of shit, and her mom is mean to her, and I just honestly, like, that whole sister thing made me rate that book lower than I probably would have. Alright, I think that's all I have to say on that. I'm gonna finish putting on concealer and then we'll move on to the next one. The next question is powder, and this is to list your favorite last book in a series. And this is a little bit of a cop-out, but I'm gonna go with whatever the most recent book in the Sigma series is. That is always my favorite. So when I read it, The Last Odyssey was my favorite book in the Sigma Force series. I recently read an arc of Kingdom of Bones, and now that is my favorite in the series. Like, everyone in that Sigma Force series just gets better every time. I am gonna say that because even though the series is not done yet, and there technically isn't a last book in the series, I'm sure when the next one comes out, that will be my new favorite. So the next one is Eyebrows, and this is a book you think everyone should read. This is actually a pretty recent read for me. I talk about it in my March wrap-up, and that is Know My Name by Chanel Miller. I think I even said in that wrap-up that I think everyone should read this, and I stand by that 100%. It's incredible. It is literally one of the best books I have ever read in my entire life. I would also highly recommend the audiobook. That's the way I ingested it as a story. Chanel Miller herself narrates it. And I guess for those of you who haven't heard of this book, Chanel Miller was the plaintiff in the Brock Turner versus the state of California, or the Stanford rape case back in 2016. And the media put her through the frickin' ringer. And it's an incredible story of perseverance and strength. And it's heartbreaking, but also kind of like slightly uplifting in the way that she took this terrible situation and made something semi-decent out of it. I mean, the book is more than semi-decent. The book's incredible. But I mean, it's just, I thought it was really, really great, and I think everyone should read it, especially if you plan on going to college or going through the Greek system or being a human being in their 20s. The next book is a book with your favorite color on it, and this is another recent read, but my favorite color is orange, and I think the first book that comes to my mind, probably because I read it recently, is The Poppy War. So this is hugely, hugely popular book. Like, it's very, very popular. And it is the story of a young war orphan named Rin, and she gets into this military academy and is learning about military things, and then gets introduced to some form of shamanism, and then gets pulled into a war, and crazy things ensue from there. This book is, there's a reason it's so freaking hyped. It is probably one of the best books out there, like legit. Like, it is just so freaking good. And it is based on like Chinese World War II era history. So there is another country that they're fighting this war against that is based on the country of Japan, Imperial Japan during World War II. And so the history that the author bases this book on is very, very dark. And so it's not surprising that the book itself is very, very dark. So you might want to consider checking trigger warnings before you read it. But it's not dark just for the sake of like shock factor. I think it's saying a lot with what it has, and just based on, you know, this is real life history. This is stuff that really happened and is stuff we should be learning about and being aware of, and the horrors of war and what these people did to each other. I love history. I love learning about like all of these histories. I enjoyed it immensely, and I think everyone who likes fantasy should read it. I'm gonna finish working on this eyeshadow look.
One eternity later.
I think we are finally probably not done blending, but I'm bored of blending, so we're done blending. So next is eyeliner, and that is a dark and mysterious book, and this is another recent read. This is basically just my March wrap-up just over again in a book tag, but you know, it's fine. Anyway, Pines by Blake Crouch. This book, so good. So good. It is so creepy and mysterious. You're in this mountain town. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to talk and do this at the same time. Jesus, I can't do this. All right, there we go. We're gonna do it to the other side now. You're not gonna get a watch because I just need to be way too up close and personal to do this. Maybe if I go like this. Oh yeah, there you go. Now you can kind of see what I'm doing. Okay, relax the eyeball. Okay, and as per usual, that didn't turn out that great, so we're gonna blend it out. But anyways, this book is about a Secret Service agent who gets called to a small town in Idaho to investigate the disappearance of 2 other Secret Service agents, and he ends up getting into a car crash upon arriving into this town and waking up with no memory of who he is in a hospital, and then regains his memory, but stuff still isn't quite vibing right, and he's trying to figure out what's going on inside this town. It's super weird and creepy, and it's great. Blake Crouch, I think, does the creepy thriller better than most, especially with a little bit of a sci-fi kind of twist on it. So I'm gonna quit talking about it before I spoil anything, but I think you should read it. The next prompt is mascara. Did I grab my mascara? No. I forgot it. Anyway, the prompt associated with mascara is name a long book, and I scrolled through my stats spreadsheet to figure out like what books I had read that are long. And I think technically the longest book I've read since I've started like tracking my reading is Winter in the Lunar Chronicles, and I think that clocks in at like over 800 pages, which is crazy. Obviously I could count it. It's an 800-page book. It's long. But I read that on e-reader, and it's like a YA book, so like it doesn't feel that long. I think what I'm gonna go with is actually my current read, and that is The Dragon Republic, the second book in the Poppy War trilogy, because that is a thickum book. Third one is even longer, but they're all very thick books. The Dragon Republic is very good so far, but technically the next prompt is contour. I don't really contour, and I couldn't think of a book for this prompt anyways, so I'm just gonna say it. The prompt for contour is a book with surprising depth. If you want to include that in your thing, you can. I'm not going to because I couldn't think of a book and I don't contour, so we're gonna go with it. But the next one is blush, and the question for this is, and I forgot my blush brush. Anyway, the one for this is a book with a cringy romance, and I am going to go with a book I read for the Shelf This Book Club, and that is 6 Crimson Cranes. So this is it's a YA book, so already right there, like YA books and romance, there's gonna be some cringe, but specifically the book kind of sets up this love triangle, and basically everyone in the book club agreed that we are all on the side of one part of the love triangle. So I'm gonna say the part that none of us liked, that's cringe, and it's set up really poorly, like as far as a love triangle, because I think the love triangle is gonna end up going the way we don't want it to go, and it's gonna make me really sad because the part of the love triangle I enjoy and that the book club enjoyed is just so much better. But anyways, I don't want to spoil anything, so I'm not gonna talk too much about it, but if you've read the book, you probably know what I'm talking about. And if you're in the Shelf This Book Club, you definitely know what I am talking about. Next up is Bronzer. This is a summer read. So what I ended up kind of going with my gut with was Ariadne by Jennifer Saint. This is a Greek mythology retelling of Theseus and the Minotaur myth from the perspective of Princess Ariadne, the gal who gives Theseus the thread or yarn or whatever you want to say to help him get through the labyrinth to eventually defeat the Minotaur. And the reason I'm gonna say this is a summer read is because, I guess, spoilers for like a 3,000-year-old story, but Ariadne ends up getting abandoned on an island by Theseus after he promised to take her back to Greece with him to become his bride. He leaves her on the island of Naxos, and there she meets the god Dionysus, who eventually makes her his bride, and she just lives her best cottagecore life on the island of Naxos. So that's the reason it kind of felt like a little more summery to me, is that like she's like just living her best island cottagecore life, and that just felt very summery and nice to me. All right, up next is Highlight, which I love. Highlight me to the moon. I want the astronauts to be able to see me. And this one, fairly obvious, a book that brightens your day. And I ended up going with I Will Judge You by Your Bookshelf. I read this late last year. It's a bunch of comics dedicated to people's love of reading and writing, which I think is super sweet. And I've mentioned before in past videos, like I don't super love books about books, but I think the fact that this is just like a little comic book instead of like a full-on novel, it didn't feel as like self-congratulatory to me. Really enjoyed it. It's a super quick read. I like went through the whole book in a day, but I think it'd also be just like a really good kind of coffee table book. But it's super, super sweet and just celebrates like people's love and joy of reading, which is great. I love to read. I would assume everybody watching this video probably also loves to read. But yeah, if you have a chance to like pick up this book, it's super cute, it's super sweet, and it's short. So great. This last prompt is actually something I am adding because typically for my videos, I will wear fake eyelashes. There was not a question in there for fake eyelashes, so I'm going to add one. And that is, name a book that catfished you. Because I think as far as the ability to catfish someone, it comes from fake eyelashes. All this looks like fine and good, but the real magic happens when I pop on these fake lashes. And this is also, with this question in this tag, this is gonna be my final send off to this book that I have been ragging on for months now, and I just need to call it a day and stop complaining about this book so much and just let it live its life. But that is Daughter of Sparta. I read this around Thanksgiving, and it is supposed to be a Daphne and Apollo Greek mythology retelling. It is not that at all. It is a typical like YA story of a chosen one girl who has to go off and help the gods get their powers back, and everybody falls in love with her because she's just so freaking incredible. And this book was just so cliche and so boring and so forgettable, and I was expecting so much. Like a Daphne and Apollo retelling, you could do so much with things that matter today. You could talk about like rape culture and toxic masculinity and how it affects men's ability to connect with women on a deeper level, and this book did none of that. It just was a generic freaking YA journey story, and it made me very sad because I had very high expectations, and it was bad. It was bad. It was not good. So that book catfished me, and I'm about to catfish you once I pop on these lashes. So I guess here's half. Like this eye has the lash, and this eye doesn't. You can see this is catfishing. This is semi-normal face. It's drastic. Drastic. All right, there we go. Eyelashes. Sufficiently catfishy. The last prompt is lipstick, and this is a favorite book kiss. I was struggling to come up with just like one kiss, but I think what I'm going to end up going with is Basically just the book Red, White, and Royal Blue. I think that is probably one of my favorite romances. I just think the two leads are just so sweet. And I guess a quick synopsis is basically just a semi-forbidden romance between the first son of the United States and the Prince of England. And it's just so sweet, and the Prince of England in this book is so nerdy and cute, and they're just, oh, I just love them. I just love them together, and they're so good. I don't know which kiss specifically I would pick. There were many, many kisses in this book, considering it is a romance book. But I loved them all. They were all so sweet. So that is the end of the tag and the end of my makeup look. So that's pretty much what I do for all of my videos. Little bit of difference in how I do my eyeshadow depending on how adventurous I want to be that day. But that's it. Hey, so it is several hours after I initially started filming and I just realized I forgot to tag people. So I am tagging Kayla Ray Reads, Nerdy Nat Reads, and Lala Loves Lit. I don't think any of them have done this tag, and if they have, it's been at least like a year since they've done it. So their answers have probably changed as well. Thanks so much for watching, and I will catch you on the next video.